47, verse 28. Vayechi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt. Shiva Esrei Shana, for 17 years. Vayehi Yaakov. We're in Parshas Vayechi, chapter 47, verse 28. Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. Vayehi Yemei Yaakov Shnei Chayav Sheva Shanim V'Arbaim U'Ma'ah Shana. And hello, Ben. How you doing? Good. We're
we got the Moses book, started that, and then we just got the
Joseph.
Very glad to hear it. I think obviously Gene.
Yeah, so well, he lives on in his writings, that's for sure. So
60. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly.
So we're chapter 47, verse 28, and Jacob lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years, and Jacob's life was 147 years old. So the first thing we talk about is the Rashi. Rashi talks about a scribal oddity. Normally, there's a paragraph break before each new parsha in the Torah, that there's a break, and there's a space, at least 6 words. Is it 6 words? No, at least 6 letters. At least 6 letters or 9 letters, but not 6 words. But this parsha, 9 letters, right? But this parsha, there's only 1 letter, meaning to say there's no break, because there's always supposed to be 1 letter before each word. So this parsha, there's no break before it. So Rashi says, Lama Parsha Zu Sisuma. Why is this passage closed? Why is there no break in the writing of the text of the Torah? Now, of course, you know that the parshios, the division of the parshios, is not something that was instituted in the time of the giving of the Torah. It was instituted post-Talmudic, because they didn't divide up, they didn't finish the Torah every year. They did it on every 3 years, or it was done much longer. So why, but still, by the time Rashi's writing, they had parshios. So why is this passage closed? So Rashi tells us, because Shekivan Sheniftar. So Rashi gives 2 theories. One theory is Shekivan Sheniftar Yaakov Avinu Nistimu Eineim V'Libam Shal Yisrael Mitzaras Hashibud. Once our forefather Jacob passed away, the eyes and the hearts of Israel were closed because of the suffering of the enslavement. Egyptians began to enslave him. So basically, the closed passage refers to the closed eyes, the closed off of hope, that the Egyptians began to enslave the Jewish people at this time. Jacob's death signaled off the closing of hope for redemption. That's the first theory. So basically, with the death of Jacob, the slavery began. Even though the slavery technically doesn't begin until the next portion in Shemot, where after Joseph dies, here Rashi is telling us that once Jacob died, it was the beginning of the enslavement. A second theory, Rashi says, alternatively, is something else was closed off. Jacob wished to reveal the end. He wanted to reveal the end of time. He wanted to say, well, it's not clear what the end means. He wanted to reveal the end to his sons. Either the end of the exiles, that's what the Maharal understands, the end of all the exiles, when they were going to be released, when the Mashiach would come, or some say the end of the exile in Egypt. But he had a vision of when the exile would come to an end. And then at that moment, his eyes was closed. It was closed off from him. Rashi doesn't tell us why, but presumably it was closed off because God didn't want us to know the end. If you know how the book ends, you don't bother reading the whole book, right? So he didn't want us to know the end. So that's the passage. Here there's a lot to comment on this Rashi. I have a lot of comments on this Rashi. Here, this Rashi provokes a lot of interesting ideas. So I'll read some of them. I have here 12 commentaries on this Rashi. How are you doing, Yoni? Good. We're in chapter, beginning of Parshas Vayechi, chapter 47, verse 28. So the first is from Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin. So he says as follows. He says the whole aspect that opens up this portion is sealed and closed off from us, from our intellect. Why did Jacob, who was already in the land of Israel, need to go to exile himself to Egypt and from there to go back to Israel? And why specifically was it in Egypt that we became a nation? It says, Hinei Am Yatzam Mitzrayim. Behold, a nation has come out forth from Egypt. And why did we receive the Torah outside of Israel in the desert? And Chazal said, these breaks in the Torah, all the breaks in the Torah, what's the reason for them? They give us space to Moshe to understand between each passage. Meaning to say, but these whole things are all the ideas that are contained in this portion. Hello, Kobe. Car is okay? Yeah. Okay. All the breaks, all the ideas in this portion, you can't be understood. They're too deep. And so therefore, here we see, says Reb Tzadok, and here's the powerful idea. From here we learn not to give up hope in the coming of the Messiah, because the generations were getting worse and worse and worse, and we're trembling. How can we get a redemption? Because specifically in exile, we'll be able to grab the greatest holiness. That's what God wants. And so, meaning to say, even though the souls are getting deeper and smaller, nevertheless, the deepest point in the heart is becoming purer in every generation. So anyway, what Reb Tzadok is saying, it's a very deep idea, is he's saying we don't understand the ways of God. That's why Rashi says Yaakov's eyes were closed. He wanted to reveal the Mashiach, but it was closed. And why is there no break here, but in the rest of the Torah there are breaks? The rest of the ideas in the Torah are much easier to comprehend. But basically this passage is dealing with what is the ways of God? Meaning to say, why are we in exile all these years? Why are we in Egypt? And why specifically from Egypt do we become a nation? So that's this idea. It's he quotes so here, why was Jacob unable to reveal the end? So this is what the Rebbe Rabunim says. What's the reason why Jacob was unable to reveal the end? When you hear this, you're going to cry. I'm going to give you an answer that you're going to cry. The Rebbe Rabunim, one of the great Rebbe, says, Rashi says he wanted to reveal the end. Hello, Thira. Hello, Thira. Good afternoon. He wanted to reveal the end, but he wasn't able to do it. Why not? Because if they knew the end, they would have had an easier time going through the exile, of bearing the burden of the exile. And that would have made the exile easier upon us. But the Rebbe Rabunim says that we're not supposed to have it easier. So this is a very sad explanation. No, there's an end. It assumes that there's an end. With Shepsel, good afternoon, Thira. So Rashi says that Yaakov was going to reveal the end, but then he was unable to do it. It was closed off from him. So the question is why? So the Rebbe Rabunim says, because if he would reveal the end to us, then the pain would have been easier. Like for example, if you don't know why you have pain, and you don't know when the pain is going to end, then the pain is unbearable. But if you know, okay, the pain will be over in 3 days, then you can get through it. So if we understood the depths of the pain, if we understood the limit of the pain, then the exile will be much easier for us. We're not supposed to know it. This is, to my mind, such a painful answer. Because we don't know the end. We don't know when it's going to end. Yeah. So here, we'll have a couple. Here is what Rabbi Hirsch says, Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch. So he says, I don't understand. It says, why is there no space between Parashas Vayigash and Vayechi? Because since Jacob died, the eyes of the Jewish people and their hearts were closed. So he says, so Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch asked the question, well, if that's the case, it should have also been closed between Vayechi and Shemot, when all the brothers die. And there, Jacob actually died at the end of the parasha. Jacob dies at the end of Vayechi, not at the beginning of Vayechi. So really, the portion should be closed at the end of Vayechi. So, hey, Yoav, how you doing? So Rabbi Hirsch says that the parashas Vayigash concludes with the words, Vayeshev Yisrael be'eretz Goshen vayeachazu ba. Meaning to say that Jacob dwelt in the land of Goshen. How you doing? Amazing. And they took hold in it. They stopped in the land of Goshen and they took hold of it. That the Jewish people saw in Egypt a place where they could take hold, the land of their birthplace, so to speak. And so therefore, as long as Jacob was alive, Chazal were saying that they knew that they were just sojourning there, but that they weren't really dwelling there. But the next generation saw it differently. And so therefore, they didn't understand what was going on. And so therefore, that's why Rashi says, why did Yaakov want to be buried in Israel? He doesn't bring an explanation. So the reason is, meaning to say, he didn't want to be buried in Egypt because he wanted them to recognize that they were in exile. They didn't think they were in exile anymore. That was the problem. Problem was they didn't think they were in exile. This is what the Jewish people, this is something we're all guilty of. We don't realize we're in exile when the Jewish community in America is, even the poorest ones here are wealthier than Jews have ever been in history. In America, in Europe, and I mean, there's so much reasons why we don't think we're in exile. So, okay, we'll just do one more about this very beautiful Rashi. Yeah. These are not in Sefaria. I have an anthology of Hasidic masters. This is not in Sefaria. These are commentaries on the Rashi. So this is what the Sfas Emes says. The Sfas Emes, the Ger Rebbe, says that Yaakov wanted to reveal the end of time, and it was closed off from him. So why was it closed? Because the exile is coming to cleanse the sins of Israel in order to be good for us in the end. And if we know the ending time, then we won't feel the bitterness of the exile. Because this is similar to what the Rebbe Rabunim said. If a person knows the ending, it's not a tremendous pain. It's not as painful. That's a similar answer. So you see, that's the Hasidic explanation. Let's just do one more. There's so much here. There's so many beautiful things here, but we'll go back to the Rashi. We can get, you see, there's on this one Rashi, there's 20 different Hasidic thoughts about it, because this Rashi is so pregnant with meaning that we want to study more and more and more. By the way, I want to just say, no matter what, we're going to be meeting here tomorrow, even if it's just me, and even if you come and there's no minion because the snow is piled up to the sky, we'll study Torah and we'll daven, even if it's just me. Okay, I promise you. I can make it because I'm only 2 blocks away. But if it's dangerous for you, don't come. God forbid, don't come if it's dangerous. But I'll be turning on that Zoom tomorrow. So tomorrow is a great day for Torah study because if it snows a lot, all what you need to do is say, "Oh, where am I going to go? I will study Torah." And also schools are canceled, and so that means the roads are clear. So that means you could drive. And Yoni, you've got a plane, so you can fly here. Yoni's a pilot. Okay, so now the next pasuk says, "Vayikrevu yemei Yisrael hamut," and the days of Israel came close to death. Vayikra livno Yosef, and he calls his son Joseph. Vayomer lo, he says to him, "Imna matzasi chen beinecha, stimna yadcha tachas yirechi, v'asisa imadi chesed ve'emes, al not tikbrain b'mitzrayim." And he says, days of Jacob came close to death, and he says, calls to his son Joseph, and he says, "If I have favor in your eyes, do put your hand under my thigh, do for me kindness and truth. Do not bury me in Egypt." This is what's called chesed ve'emes, is what's called chesed ve'emes, the ultimate kindness and truth. What is that? That's when you bury somebody. Before we get to the Rashi, I'll explain it. Rabbi Vayechi explained, kindness is measured by the manner in which you help somebody who can't help themselves. And the person who is the least able to help themselves is the one who is dead because they can no longer help themselves. So therefore, the ultimate kindness is to help the dead. So Rashi says the days came close to dying. Kol mi shenemar bo krivo amus. Anyone about whom it says is approaching to die, lo igio imeavos. It means he didn't reach the age of his fathers. Isaac lived to 180 years, and Yaakov lived to 147. And by David it says kriva, and his father lived 400 years, or maybe 80 years, and David lived 70. Most people, Rashi understood this, most people live to around the same age as their father. So, I don't know. But Ben, we were just talking about your father. Or maybe it could be your mother. How long your mother hopefully she lived longer. So nowadays also we have better medicine, better diet, we know certain things. But people get very nervous when they come to the age at which their parent died. They feel like that's my time. And then after that, they're living on borrowed time. Vayikra of Noah Yosef.
That's also Rashi from when he gave the blessing to Yaakov and Esav. It says that because he thought that he'll be within 5 years of his mother or father.
Right, exactly.
But I just got an email last week from the Pew Center, and there's 111,000 people in the United States that are 100 and above. And they expect that in 30 years it will be times 440,000.
There's one person who comes to a Rashi study who's turning 100 in January, and he comes every day, and he's sharp as anyone. But the thing is, when you get to 100, it's a little bit sad because if you have kids, probably one of your kids is 80, and so then you could be burying all your friends. Yeah, your friends are gone. I mean, it's just tricky. It's tricky. So he says, place your hand. Rashi says, the kindness that's done with the dead, this is considered the kindness of truth, genuine kindness, because you do not look forward. All the other kindnesses that we do for somebody, on some level, we expect a little bit to be paid back for it. But when we do something for the dead, we don't get any payment back. Now, it's a little bit tricky, but because it's not exactly the case, because sometimes you do something for the dead and their relatives are appreciative and they pay you back. But what we're saying is, if you do something for the dead and nobody knows about it, let's say you go visit the grave and no one knows about it, and you say a prayer, or you make sure that the grave is cared for, nobody will ever know. So that's the highest level of kindness, because they can never pay you back. the Talmud says, he who eulogizes will be eulogized, he who buries will be buried. So that's the idea. Okay. He says, Al not tikbareni b'Mitzrayim. Why does Yaakov not want to be buried in Egypt? So do you remember this, Yoav? Why does Yaakov not want to be buried in Egypt? Remember this, Yoni? So Yaakov doesn't want to be buried in Egypt. Anybody remember the reasons? Few reasons. First of all, he knew that there was going to be the plague of lice. Sofoliot afarakinim. He knew that the earth would turn into lice. And therefore he didn't want to get the lice on him. What does that mean? El merachshin tachas gufo. Or he says, and they'll be crawling underneath my body, the lice.
Is that true? Lice exist under my house?
Well, no, that's where they started. It said in the Torah, on the plague of the lice, it says he hit the earth and the lice came out. So therefore, that's number one. Number two is the dead outside of Israel, then when they are resurrected, they're only resurrected by rolling through the tunnels. This is what it says in Kesubos, and that's very painful.
For
the resurrection of the dead, that in Israel, they just get right up. But outside of Israel, those who are buried outside of Israel, you have to roll through the tunnels before you can be resurrected, and that's very painful. And number three is, he said, I don't want the Egyptians to worship me and make a god out of me. So this is very interesting. The Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't want to be buried in Israel. He wanted to be buried in Queens. He wanted to be buried next to his father-in-law in Queens. But Yaakov wanted to be buried in Israel. So these are the three reasons. Now we know. Okay, reason number three makes sense to me. It's clear. He says, I don't want them to worship me. Reason number two makes somewhat sense to me. I don't really understand it, but he's saying basically the resurrection of the dead will not be as smooth outside of Israel. And reason number one is the lice. That I don't understand at all, because presumably maggots are eating all of our bodies. So here's what the here's what one of the Rebbes say. It says, they said to the Kotzker Rebbe, one elder came and he said he's ready to go up to Israel so that he doesn't have to feel the pain of rolling through the tunnels. So the Kotzker Rebbe said, oy vay voy. Look how much these people love their bodies, that even when their bodies are rotting, they're worried for them even after the death. So that's what the Kotzker Rebbe's with me. Kotzker Rebbe's with me. There are people, I've had this in my rabbinate, and I'm always like a little bit, I try not to judge people's spiritual anxieties, because who am I to judge it? But some people, when they say to me, oh, I can't deal with being buried underground. I only want to be buried above ground. People express to me because they don't want the worms to eat them. And I'm thinking, but you're dead. No, I'm thinking that. I'm saying, what's the difference? And funerals, people can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on funerals. What?
Caskets.
Yeah, for sure. Very expensive, but you're dead. So what's I don't understand what people are thinking with when they say, oh, I want to be buried in a mausoleum and not it's the opposite of the Jewish approach, which is to be buried. We have to put earth into the coffin so the body decomposes as quickly as possible, because we believe that before the body can decompose, the soul is not at rest. So anyway, this is the Kotzker Rebbe. He didn't like this idea. That I guess he disagrees with the first approach of Rashi.
Well, I
Yeah.
had heard that Yaakov wanted to be buried in Israel so that it would give the Bnei Israel hope when they were in Mitzrayim that they would be redeemed.
Yeah, so that's a beautiful answer. It's not, this Rashi doesn't say it, but it makes sense to me, complete sense. And then he says that he wanted them to realize that they shouldn't stay. We kind of read that a few moments ago, that they said, don't stay in Egypt. Our homeland is there. The problem with that is that all the if you ever see the Hasidic groups today, they're traveling like crazy all over Europe to visit the Rebbe. They went when I went to Reb Elimelech's grave. Did I tell you about this trip? I told you, like around a year ago in April. People go every year on his yard site, and the plane took off. It was a chartered plane, beautiful, nicest plane I've ever been on. There's like 500 people on it. Oh, I was the only non-Hasidic, and they took off on a Saturday night from JFK, landed in Poland. We were in Poland for 6 hours, went straight to the Reb Elimelech's grave, 5 other graves, and they had the whole trip with the food. They go on these trips. The Hasidim go to all over Poland, Russia, Lithuania, Galicia, Ukraine, even now to see. They go back to the land of. I mean, how do you say it? This was not our homeland. The Ukraine was not our homeland. It was where we were for a period of time, and for some years it was good, but most of the time it was probably not good. So, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't want to go to Israel. So it's a real question. I think the Rebbe, I don't know why he didn't want to go to Israel, but first of all, probably the main reason he didn't want to go to Israel is he wanted to be buried next to his father-in-law. But the other reason I think is because he wanted to give a source of hope to the Jews who are here, who we know need something. Like of all the places to visit, there's very few places in America that people go on spiritual journeys to. The only place they really go, the main place they really go here is the Rebbe's OL. And even like Trump went like the week before his election or something to the OL. And people, now you're going to see every politician is going to go like the night before their election. I remember 8 years ago, Ivanka and Jared went the night before the election to the OL. So it's become a place of pilgrimage of everybody going there. People are going there. They recognize it as a holy place. And I think he wanted to give a place for people to go. He wanted to give a place for people to go. Has anybody here been to the OL? Yeah, just besides Shepson? Yeah, what are you saying?
How can it be holy? Meaning, like there's Tumat Bet HaKvarot, no, and Tumat Eretz HaAmim.
How could it be holy? You're asking the question how it could be holy? It could be holy.
Yes.
First of all, there's a couple of reasons why it could be holy. One, if a holy man is buried there and his wife, a holy man and a holy wife are buried there, so then it becomes a place of holiness. Also, people go there to pray, and the people are praying with such purity there that it makes it very special. And there's like a whole synagogue outside of it and a Beit Midrash. People do holy things there. But of course, there's anytime you have something like that, you also have craziness. But I was there a few times.
I'm not so much. It's not because of crazy. Well, first of all, I'm a Kohen, but just
Cohen has no problem going there. The Cohens could go there too.
Okay, I believe that. That's why I went to
No, I'm not joking. They have a
no, that's why I went to Marat Achpila. That's okay. I'm just saying, but the problem I have is that there's a very, very thin line between Doresh Lamitim and praying to Hashem.
Yeah, so that's all.
Unfortunately,
you're not
people are still communicating with him.
For sure.
Sorry.
You should not be praying. We're not praying to the Rebbe. You go there and you're trying. This is what I do. When you go there, you're inspired by the way this man lived, so we can channel our own prayers to God better. But you're not praying to the Rebbe. The Rebbe's deceased. But there are fax machines there with so many kvitlach piled up high. And it's not a joke that the Kohanim, who are not allowed to go to the graves, generally speaking, they go there, they walk in a metal box, so they're protected. And then when they get to the grave, they take off the metal box, because the righteous, the graves of the righteous don't make someone tameh. That's their principle. All right, we'll stop here and daven mincha at this time. I just want to